My brother Ethan rose at our Thanksgiving dinner, his voice sharp enough to silence the clinking glasses and warm chatter, and announced, "We voted, and you're no longer family." The words struck me like a dagger, my heart fracturing as if it had been dropped from a great height. But I summoned a steely smile to hide the ache. Around the table, my mother's laugh was a cruel melody, my father's nod a silent verdict, and my cousin's applause felt like a curtain falling on my place in this family. The betrayal was a living thing, clawing at my chest, but I refused to let them see me falter. I'd spent years carving out a life as Sarah, the independent journalist who faced the world's truths head-on. Yet here, I was still the overlooked daughter, begging for scraps of love. My hand found the folder in my bag, its edges worn from the secrets it held. With a deliberate calm, I set it on the table, the soft thud louder than their cheers. "Then I guess you won't need this," I said, my voice steady, though a storm raged within. Ethan's smug grin wavered as he grabbed the folder, his confidence crumbling like dry leaves. He tore it open, and his face blanched, a scream ripping from his throat, raw and guttural, as if he'd seen his own ruin. My mother's fork clattered to her plate, her eyes wide with shock. My father averted his gaze, his hands trembling. What secrets in that folder had turned their triumphs into terror? Who had woven this plot to cast me out, and why? I glanced at my chair, empty in my mind's eye, a stark symbol of the isolation they'd forced upon me. That chair had held me through countless dinners where my voice was drowned out, my worth measured against Ethan's hollow charm. But tonight, I was done being invisible. The folder contained truths I'd uncovered, a web of lies that would unravel their facade and expose the mastermind behind my exile. As Ethan's hands shook, clutching the damning pages, a spark of strength flared within me. For the first time, I wasn't the one fading. I was the one they feared, and this night would rewrite our story. The dining room's warmth from that Thanksgiving night lingered in my memory, but it was a cruel illusion, masking years of frost that had settled between me and my family. As a journalist in Chicago, chasing truth through late-night investigations, I'd built a life of grit and independence. Yet at home, I was still the shadow to Ethan's spotlight. My parents doted on him, their golden son, despite his string of failed ventures and lavish habits. His charm was a polished mask, one they adored, while my quiet resolve was deemed cold, unworthy of praise. The empty chair at family gatherings wasn't just a seat. It was me, forever sidelined, my contributions unnoticed. Growing up in our suburban Illinois home, the disparity stung early. At 10, I'd aced spelling bees, my certificates tucked away in a drawer, while Ethan's mediocre soccer games earned standing ovations. By 16, I was editing the school paper, but Mom would beam when Ethan skipped class to network. Their favoritism wasn't subtle. It was a banner flown at every holiday, every milestone. Dad once said, "Ethan's got big dreams, Sarah. You're just practical." Practical, as if my ambitions were a lesser currency. That empty chair loomed in my mind, a reminder of the space I was never allowed to fill. Society's expectations pressed harder as the years passed. American women, especially in their late 30s, were supposed to have it all. A spouse, kids, a Pinterest-perfect life. My single status was a scarlet letter in their eyes. At a cousin's wedding, Mom whispered, "You'd be happier with a family, Sarah." The words cut, implying my career, my solitary apartment with its stacks of books and late-night deadlines, was a failure. Ethan, meanwhile, was free to chase pipe dreams, his bachelorhood a charming quirk. The unfairness gnawed, but I clung to the hope that one day they'd see my worth. Ethan's latest scheme was a wellness startup, a vague buzzword salad he pitched with evangelical zeal. Over coffee one gray October morning, he leaned across the table, eyes gleaming, and asked for $20,000 to get it off the ground. His pitch was rehearsed, but the numbers didn't add up. Too many luxury vacations, too few business plans. Refusing him was like flipping a switch. His smile vanished, replaced by a venomous glare. "You're so selfish," he spat, storming out. The rejection wasn't just about money. It was a line drawn, a defiance of the role they'd cast me in. The dutiful sister, always ready to bail him out. The fallout was swift. Mom stopped calling. Dad's texts dwindled to one-word replies. Family group chats went silent. My messages left unread. At a neighborhood barbecue, cousins avoided my gaze, their whispers trailing me like smoke. Ethan's influence was a poison seeping through our kin. Then came Megan, his sharp-tongued best friend, a woman with a knack for twisting truths. On Instagram, she posted cryptic stories about toxic people who hoard their success. Her hashtags pointedly aimed at me. Friends I'd known since high school sent hesitant texts. "Is it true you're feuding with Ethan?" The isolation tightened like a noose, and that empty chair grew heavier in my heart. Aunt Linda, my mother's soft-spoken sister, was the only one who saw through the fog. At a quiet diner meetup, her eyes crinkled with concern as she slid a cup of tea my way. "You're stronger than they know, Sarah," she said, her voice a lifeline. She'd watched Ethan's rise and my erasure, powerless against my parents' bias, but unwilling to abandon me. Linda shared a memory of me at 8, reading her my first short story, my eyes bright with dreams. "Don't let them dim that light," she urged. Her words were a spark, reigniting my resolve to confront the family's lies, though I didn't yet know how. The pressure to conform wasn't just familial. At a women's networking event, colleagues swapped stories of balancing kids and careers, their lives a glossy montage I couldn't match. A well-meaning editor asked, "No family yet, Sarah? You're so driven, but don't wait too long." The comment, however kind, echoed Mom's judgment, reinforcing the myth that my life was incomplete. Yet my work, exposing corruption, giving voice to the silenced, felt like a calling, not a consolation prize. Why couldn't that be enough? The empty chair wasn't just at family tables. It followed me into the world, whispering I'd never measure up. Ethan's shadow grew darker as autumn deepened. A colleague tipped me off about a local scam, a wellness guru fleecing investors with fake retreats. The name was a front, but the details matched Ethan's pitch too closely. Same buzzwords, same promises of transformation. My journalist instincts kicked in, though my heart resisted. Digging into his affairs felt like betraying the family, yet staying silent meant betraying myself. Late nights at my desk, poring over bank records and social media, revealed a trail of deceit. Ethan wasn't just reckless, he was calculating, and Megan was his accomplice, amplifying his lies to protect their scheme. Linda's encouragement became my anchor. She slipped me an old photo at a farmer's market, one of us baking cookies when I was 12, her smile proud as I dusted flour from my hands. "You've always been a truth teller," she said. That photo, tucked into my wallet, was a talisman against the family's scorn. It reminded me of the girl who believed in justice, who wouldn't bow to favoritism. The folder I'd prepared for Thanksgiving wasn't just evidence, it was a reckoning, a way to reclaim my voice. But the scope of Ethan's deception and Megan's role was bigger than I'd imagined, threatening to upend more than just our family. The weeks before Thanksgiving were a gauntlet. Megan's online attacks intensified, her posts now liked by my own relatives. At a family friend's baby shower, Mom pulled me aside, her voice icy. "Why can't you support Ethan like a sister should?" she hissed, oblivious to his lies. Dad stood nearby, silent, his disapproval a weight I'd carried since childhood. The empty chair wasn't a metaphor anymore. It was real, a space they'd carved out to exclude me. Yet Linda's faith and my growing evidence fueled a quiet fire. I wasn't the problem, they were. Deciding to confront them at Thanksgiving felt like stepping onto a battlefield. The folder, heavy with documents, was my weapon, but doubt lingered. Would exposing Ethan and Megan heal the rift or shatter what little family I had left? The night before, I sat in my apartment, the city's hum a distant comfort, and traced the edges of Linda's photo. The truth was my only path forward, no matter the cost. Ethan's schemes, Megan's manipulations, and my parents' blindness had built a house of cards, and I was ready to pull it down. But as I packed the folder, a cryptic text from an unknown number flashed on my phone. "You don't know the half of it. Who else was involved, and what were they hiding?" The autumn air carried a crisp bite as Mom's birthday dinner approached, a celebration that always doubled as a stage for Ethan's theatrics. The family gathered at their favorite Italian restaurant, its dim lights casting long shadows across white tablecloths. Laughter bubbled around Ethan as he regaled everyone with tales of his latest business deal, each word polished to dazzle. Dad clapped him on the back, proclaiming, "You're the pride of this family, son." The praise was a familiar hymn, one that left no room for my quieter achievements. My articles exposing local fraud, my late nights chasing leads, they were invisible here, as if my life's work was a footnote to Ethan's grandiose dreams. The empty chair wasn't physical tonight, but it loomed in my heart, a void where my place should have been. Mom's eyes sparkled when Ethan gifted her a gaudy necklace, its price tag likely funded by his latest investor. When my turn came, I offered a hand-stitched journal chosen for her love of poetry. She smiled thinly, murmuring, "Practical, as always, Sarah," before setting it aside. The dismissal stung, a reminder that my efforts were never enough. Later, as plates of tiramisu circulated, she leaned close, her voice low but cutting. "Why can't you help your brother? He's trying to build something, but you're too busy playing detective." The accusation was a blade, twisting deeper because it came from her. My refusal to fund Ethan's scam had become my crime, and she was the judge. Ethan's charm offensive didn't stop with family. Across the room, he worked the crowd, waiters, distant cousins, even the restaurant owner, spinning stories of his wellness empire. His best friend Megan hovered nearby, her sharp eyes scanning for anyone who dared question him. She'd always been his enforcer, quick to shut down dissent with a barbed comment or a sly post online. When I caught her gaze, she smirked, raising her glass as if toasting my irrelevance. My stomach churned, sensing her role in the whispers that had begun to follow me. The empty chair grew heavier, a symbol of how easily they'd written me out of their story, with Megan as the eager scribe. A conversation overheard at the bar cracked the facade. Two family friends, sipping wine, mentioned Ethan's investors who'd lost thousands on his retreats. Their tone was wary, hinting at rumors of forged contracts. My journalist instincts flared, but doubt crept in. Could I investigate my own brother? The thought felt like a betrayal, yet his lies were a betrayal too. Back at the table, Ethan's laughter rang out, carefree, while I sat silent, piecing together fragments of truth. The folder in my apartment, now half filled with bank statements and screenshots, was starting to take shape. But I needed more to confront him. The weight of that choice pressed against my chest, a storm brewing beneath my calm exterior. Megan's next move came swiftly, as if she sensed my resolve. At the dinner's end, she cornered me near the coat rack, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Sarah, you're so independent. Must be nice keeping all that success to yourself." Her words were a trap, designed to paint me as the selfish sister. Defiance surged, and I met her gaze. "I don't fund liars, Megan. You'd do well to remember that." Her smile froze, a flicker of unease betraying her composure. The exchange was brief but electric, a warning that I wasn't as docile as they thought. My heart raced as I walked away, knowing I'd just drawn a line in the sand. Aunt Linda's presence offered a fleeting refuge. As we cleared dessert plates, she slipped me an old Polaroid from her purse, a snapshot of me at a school play, beaming in a makeshift crown. "You were born to shine," she whispered, her voice a balm against the night's wounds. She'd seen Ethan's rise and my marginalization, her quiet rebellion limited to these stolen moments. The photo was a lifeline, a reminder of the girl who'd once believed in her own worth. Linda's faith bolstered my plan to face the family at Thanksgiving, but the folder's contents were still incomplete. I needed undeniable proof, something to shatter their illusions about Ethan. The restaurant's glow faded as we stepped into the chilly night, but the tension clung like damp leaves. Ethan and Megan lingered by his car, their heads bent close, their conversation hushed but intense. My ears caught fragments: my name, problem, and soon. The words sent a shiver down my spine, not from the cold, but from the realization that their plan to exclude me was deliberate, calculated. The empty chair wasn't an accident. It was their design, a space they'd carved to erase me entirely. Back home, my apartment was a sanctuary of soft lamplight and scattered notes. The folder lay on my desk, its pages a growing mosaic of Ethan's deceit, receipts for luxury purchases, emails promising fake returns. But Megan's role was murkier. Her involvement hinted at in coded texts I'd screenshot from Ethan's old phone. My investigation was a tightrope walk, balancing loyalty to family against loyalty to truth. Every discovery felt like peeling back a wound, exposing not just Ethan's rise, but the family's complicity. Mom's words at dinner echoed, "Why can't you help your brother?" They didn't want my help. They wanted my silence. A late-night scroll through Megan's social media revealed a new post, a veiled jab at selfish people who tear families apart. The comments were a chorus of support from relatives, their likes a digital betrayal. My throat tightened, the sting of exclusion sharper than ever. But buried in the thread was a cryptic reply from an anonymous account. "Ask her about the offshore account." The words were a jolt, a clue that Megan's involvement ran deeper than I'd guessed. My pulse quickened as I jotted it down, the folder's purpose crystallizing. Thanksgiving was weeks away, and I'd need every scrap of evidence to face them. The Polaroid from Linda sat beside my laptop, a beacon in the dark. Its faded edges held a promise that I could reclaim the light they'd tried to snuff out. But Ethan and Megan's whispered plans haunted me, their words a puzzle I couldn't yet solve. The folder was my weapon, but it wasn't enough. As I sifted through bank records, a notification pinged on my phone, a voicemail from Linda, her voice trembling. "Sarah, I overheard something tonight. You need to be careful." The message cut off abruptly, leaving a chilling silence. What had Linda heard, and who else was watching me? November's chill settled over Chicago, mirroring the frost that had hardened between me and my family since Mom's birthday. The occasion was my parents' 40th anniversary, a lavish affair at their lakeside country club, where crystal chandeliers cast a deceptive glow over the rift tearing us apart. Ethan held court, his charisma a magnet for aunts, uncles, and old family friends, each one hanging on his tales of imminent success. Mom, radiant in a sapphire gown, toasted his vision, while Dad's proud smile spoke volumes. Ethan was their legacy. My presence, by contrast, felt like an afterthought. My seat at the edge of the table, a silent testament to the empty chair that defined my place among them. The evening speeches were a parade of adoration for my parents' enduring love, but Ethan stole the spotlight with a surprise announcement. He unveiled plans for a wellness retreat center, promising healing and prosperity, his words slick as polished marble. The crowd erupted in applause, but my stomach twisted. Those plans were funded by lies, the same lies I'd begun uncovering in bank records and hushed rumors. As he spoke, Megan's eyes locked onto mine from across the room, her smirk a silent challenge. The empty chair wasn't just a feeling now, it was a deliberate act, a space they'd crafted to diminish me. Mom's voice cut through the revelry as she pulled me aside near the dessert table, her perfume sharp with jasmine. "You're embarrassing us, Sarah," she said, her tone icy. "Ethan's trying to build a future, but you're tearing this family apart with your stubbornness." The words were a lash, stripping away years of trying to please her. Dad joined us, his silence louder than her accusations, his folded arms a wall I'd never breach. They didn't see Ethan's deceit. They saw my defiance as the sin. My throat burned with unshed tears, but I swallowed them, refusing to let their judgment break me. Megan's campaign against me escalated beyond whispers. On Twitter, she posted a photo from the party, captioned, "Some people choose greed over family. #priorities." The post was a digital dagger, liked by cousins and shared by family friends. My phone buzzed with notifications, each one a fresh wound. Relatives unfollowing me, a high school friend messaging, "What's going on with you and Ethan?" The public shaming was relentless, painting me as the villain in a story I hadn't written. The empty chair grew larger, a chasm swallowing the connections I'd once cherished, leaving me to question my own worth. Solace came in fleeting moments, tucked away in my apartment's quiet corners. Late at night, I unearthed a relic from my childhood, a letter Mom wrote when I was 9, tucked inside a book of fairy tales. "My brave Sarah," it began, "you'll always be my heart." The words, scrawled in her looping cursive, were a stark contrast to her current disdain. Reading it, tears blurred my vision, the memory of her warmth clashing with the coldness I now faced. That letter became a spark, igniting my resolve to expose Ethan and Megan's lies. The folder on my desk, now thick with evidence, was my way to reclaim the truth she'd once believed in. My investigation deepened, each discovery a shard of glass. Ethan's retreat was a front, its website riddled with stock photos and fake testimonials. Megan's role was clearer now. Her emails, intercepted from a hacked account, showed her coordinating payouts to silence angry investors. The offshore account hinted at in that anonymous comment was real, tied to her name, a secret she and Ethan guarded fiercely. Confronting this web of deceit felt like betraying the family, but their betrayal of me was far greater. The empty chair wasn't just their rejection, it was their attempt to erase my voice, my truth. A chance encounter at a coffee shop offered a glimmer of clarity. An old colleague, Rachel, spotted me and shared a troubling story. She'd invested in a wellness scam, losing thousands, and the organizer's name rang familiar. Ethan's alias used in his shadier deals. Rachel's eyes glistened with regret, her trust shattered. "If you know anything, Sarah, say it," she urged. Her pain mirrored mine, a reminder that Ethan's victims extended beyond our family. The folder wasn't just for me anymore. It was for her, for all the women he'd deceived. My resolve hardened, the weight of responsibility grounding me. The anniversary party's aftermath lingered like a bruise. Family gatherings ceased, invitations replaced by silence. A cousin's text, once warm, now read, "Why are you doing this to Ethan?" Megan's influence had turned even distant relatives against me, her lies a virus spreading unchecked. Driving home one evening, I noticed a car tailing me, its headlights too close in the rearview mirror. My pulse raced, Linda's trembling voicemail echoing, "You need to be careful." The car vanished, but the unease didn't, a shadow trailing my every step. The empty chair was no longer just emotional. It felt like a warning, a sign I was treading dangerous ground. Gathering evidence became a race against time. A late-night dive into financial records revealed a payment from Ethan to a private investigator, dated days after I refused his $20,000 demand. The realization hit like a thunderclap. They weren't just isolating me. They were digging into my life, looking for leverage. Megan's emails hinted at a final plan to ensure I'd stay out of the way. The folder, now nearly complete, held contracts, texts, and bank transfers, but one piece was missing, a link to whoever sent that anonymous offshore account tip. Thanksgiving loomed, my chance to confront them, but the stakes were higher than I'd imagined. The letter from Mom, once a comfort, now felt like a taunt. I tucked it back into the book, its promises hollow against her current allegiance to Ethan. But Rachel's story, Linda's warning, and the car in my rearview mirror fueled a fire within. The family's rejection had stripped me bare, but it also laid bare their flaws. The empty chair wasn't my shame, it was theirs, a monument to their refusal to see me. As I organized the folder's final pages, a knock at my door startled me, sharp and insistent in the midnight hush. No one knew I was awake. Heart pounding, I approached, the folder clutched tight, only to find a note slipped underneath. "Back off, or you'll regret it." Who had found me, and how much did they know? Thanksgiving morning dawned with a brittle clarity, the Chicago skyline glinting like a blade against the gray November sky. The family's sprawling dining room awaited, its long table set with Mom's heirloom china, a facade of unity that belied the fracture beneath. Years ago, a memory flickered. Ethan, barely 20, charming me into lending him $10,000 for a surefire venture. The money vanished into a sleek sports car, while Mom chided, "Don't be so stingy, Sarah." Megan, even then his shadow, had smirked, whispering to Mom that I was too selfish to understand family. That betrayal, buried deep, resurfaced as I gripped the folder, its pages a map of their deceit, ready to be unveiled. The dining room buzzed with relatives, their chatter a hum of anticipation for turkey and tradition. Ethan strutted in, his tailored jacket a stark contrast to the financial ruin he hid. Mom fussed over him, adjusting his collar like he was a prince, while Dad poured him wine, their pride a tangible glow. My seat, tucked at the table's far end, felt like a penalty box, a reminder of my place in their hierarchy. The empty chair wasn't just in my mind now, it was real, a space they'd carved to marginalize me. Yet the folder in my bag pulsed with purpose, its weight a promise of justice. As the meal began, Ethan's voice rose, commanding attention. He toasted the family, his words dripping with false humility about his mission to heal communities. Megan nodded along, her eyes darting to me, a silent dare to challenge him. The room's warmth felt suffocating, their adoration for him a wall I'd never climb. Mom's gaze skipped over me, landing on Ethan with a smile that once belonged to me. The sting of her dismissal was sharp, but it fueled a resolve that had been simmering since Linda's warning. The empty chair loomed, a symbol of their attempt to erase me, but tonight I'd rewrite the narrative. The moment arrived after the first course when Ethan, emboldened by wine and applause, stood to deliver his cruel verdict. "We've voted," he declared, his voice ablade, "and you're no longer family." The room erupted in cheers, Mom's laugh a jagged edge, Dad's nod a final seal. My heart thudded, but I rose, my movements deliberate, and placed the folder on the table with a thud that silenced their glee. "Then you won't need this," I said, my voice a calm storm. Ethan's confidence cracked, his hand hesitating before snatching the folder, as if sensing the ruin within. Pages spilled open, revealing a damning tapestry, forged contracts for his retreat, text messages plotting to fleece investors, receipts for luxury watches and private jets. But the true bombshell was an email chain, Megan's words glaring in black and white, urging Ethan to cut Sarah out before she ruins everything. She'd orchestrated the vote, her venom driving the family's rejection to protect their shared scam. Ethan's scream tore through the room, a raw, animalistic howl, his face ashen, as he realized the depth of his exposure. The empty chair wasn't just my exclusion, it was their trap, sprung by their own hubris. Mom's fork clattered, her eyes wide with shock, but her voice still clung to denial. "Sarah, you've gone too far," she snapped, her loyalty to Ethan unwavering. Dad's silence was heavier, his gaze fixed on the table, unable to meet mine. Megan lunged for the folder, trying to slam it shut, but the truth was out, its pages a mirror reflecting their lies. "You're destroying us," Ethan roared, but his accusation rang hollow. The room's air thickened, relatives whispering, their faith in him crumbling. My pulse raced, not from fear, but from the power of standing in my truth. The revelation wasn't just about Ethan's fraud. It was about Megan's betrayal, deeper than I'd imagined. Her emails, laced with malice, detailed a plan to discredit me, to paint me as the family's pariah so their scam could continue unchecked. She'd fed Mom and Dad lies, convincing them my refusal to fund Ethan was jealousy, not principle. The discovery was a gut punch, but it also lit a fire. The empty chair, once a symbol of my isolation, now represented their failure to silence me. I'd uncovered not just a scam, but a conspiracy, one that implicated the family I'd fought to belong to. Stepping back, I let the folder's contents speak for themselves. Ethan's hands shook, pages slipping to the floor, while Megan's face twisted in panic, her usual poise shattered. Relatives murmured, some reaching for the documents, their eyes widening at the evidence. Aunt Linda, seated quietly, gave me a subtle nod, her pride a silent anchor. The room's energy shifted, the family's unity fracturing as the truth took root. I didn't need their approval anymore. The folder was my voice, loud and unyielding, reclaiming the space they'd tried to deny me. Mom's voice broke the tension, trembling but defiant. "This isn't how family behaves, Sarah," she said, as if I were the betrayer. Her words were a desperate grasp at control, but they couldn't undo what was exposed. Ethan stammered, trying to deflect, but the evidence was ironclad. Megan's glare burned, her silence a confession. The empty chair stood as a testament to their attempt to erase me, but it also marked my liberation. I turned to leave, the folder's truth a weight lifted, my steps steady despite the chaos behind me. The front door's chill greeted me as I stepped into the night, the house's warmth now a distant memory. My breath clouded in the cold, but my heart felt lighter, unburdened by their lies. The folder had answered part of the question. Megan and Ethan were the architects of my exile, their scam a house of cards I'd toppled. But Linda's warning and that threatening note lingered, shadows of a deeper truth. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. "You've started a war you can't win." The words sent a chill through me, hinting at a hidden player in this game, someone watching from the dark. The city's pulse thrummed through my apartment window, a restless heartbeat matching my own in the weeks following that explosive Thanksgiving night. The folder's revelations, Ethan's fraudulent empire, Megan's venomous plot to erase me, had shattered the family's facade. But the battle was only half won. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the cursor blinking on a blank audio file labeled "The Truth Behind the Lies." Launching this podcast was a leap, a chance to reclaim my voice and expose the scam that had hurt so many. The empty chair, once a symbol of my exclusion, now felt like a stage, a place where I could finally be seen, not as the scapegoat's sister, but as a woman unafraid of the truth. Recording the first episode was like bearing a wound. In a quiet studio, the microphone captured every tremor in my voice as I recounted the wellness scam, fake retreats, stolen investments, broken trust, without naming Ethan or Megan. The story was universal, a tale of betrayal that resonated beyond my family's dining room. I wove in my own pain, the sting of being cast out, the weight of a mother's rejection. Each word was a brick, building a bridge to listeners who'd felt the same invisibility. The empty chair wasn't just mine. It belonged to every woman who'd been silenced, and this podcast was our rallying cry. The episode went live at midnight, a digital flare shot into the void. By dawn, my inbox overflowed with messages from strangers, mostly women, sharing stories of family favoritism, of being overlooked for a sibling's hollow charm. "Your voice is mine," one wrote, her words a mirror to my soul. Downloads surged, the podcast climbing charts with a velocity that stunned me. Social media buzzed, hashtags like #TruthBehindLies trending as listeners speculated about the charismatic conman and his scheming sidekick. The empty chair transformed, no longer a void, but a shared space, a community of voices rising together. A virtual support group emerged, a Facebook page where women posted their own tales of betrayal. A single mother from Ohio described a brother who drained her savings. A teacher from Texas spoke of parents who favored her sister's glamour over her quiet dedication. Their stories wove a tapestry of resilience, each thread strengthening my resolve. The group's moderator, a woman named Clara, invited me to a video call with members. Their faces, lit by screens across America, reflected gratitude and defiance. "You've given us courage," Clara said, her eyes bright. The empty chair was now a circle, a sisterhood born from shared pain. Public outrage grew as the podcast's reach expanded. On Reddit, users dissected the scam, some connecting dots to Ethan's public persona. "This sounds like that Chicago wellness guru," one post read, gaining thousands of upvotes. Victims began stepping forward, their voices amplifying the folder's evidence. A retired nurse shared how she'd lost her pension to Ethan's retreat. A small business owner posted receipts of unpaid loans. Megan's online presence, once a polished veneer, crumbled under scrutiny. Her cryptic posts now mocked as desperate deflections. The empty chair wasn't just my family's, it was Ethan's and Megan's, their credibility collapsing under the weight of truth. Ethan's response was predictable, a frantic attempt to salvage his image. A week after the podcast's debut, he posted a tearful video on Instagram claiming he was misunderstood and targeted by jealous detractors. Megan backed him, tweeting, "Some people will do anything to destroy success. #stay strong." Their deflection only fueled the fire. Commenters tore into them, citing the podcast's details, demanding answers. A local news outlet picked up the story, interviewing victims who echoed my narrative. The public's wrath was a tidal wave, and I watched, heart pounding, as the family's bolden son floundered in its wake. Aunt Linda's call came on a snowy afternoon, her voice warm with pride. "You've done something incredible, Sarah," she said, her words a balm after months of isolation. She'd listened to the podcast, recognizing Ethan's scam in every detail, though I'd never named him. Linda shared a story of her own, a sister, my mother, who'd once shut her out for questioning family loyalty. "You're breaking that cycle," she said. Her faith was a lighthouse, guiding me through the storm of public exposure. The empty chair, once a mark of my erasure, now stood as a testament to my refusal to stay silent. The podcast's impact reached beyond my expectations, landing me an invitation to speak at a women's empowerment conference in Chicago. The event, packed with hundreds of attendees, was a sea of faces, mothers, daughters, sisters, who'd found strength in my story. Backstage, I clutched Linda's old Polaroid, the girl in the crown, reminding me of the courage I'd carried all along. The folder's truth had sparked a movement, but the threatening note, "Back off or you'll regret it," and that chilling message, "You've started a war you can't win," lingered like shadows. The empty chair was no longer empty, but danger still lurked. Pace consumed my days, but the scam's fallout kept pace. A whistleblower, a former employee of Ethan's, contacted me anonymously, sharing internal emails that confirmed Megan's role in laundering funds through the offshore account. The evidence was a goldmine, bolstering the folder's claims and hinting at a wider network. Social media sleuths uncovered Megan's ties to a shady PR firm known for burying scandals. The public's hunger for justice was insatiable, each revelation tightening the noose around Ethan and Megan. Their empire was crumbling, but the anonymous threats gnawed at me, a reminder that someone else was watching. The conference stage loomed, my speech a chance to cement the podcast's impact. As I rehearsed, a notification pinged, a direct message from Clara, the support group's moderator. "We're planning a rally outside the conference," she wrote, "to stand with you and the victims." The idea was electrifying, a public show of solidarity that would echo across the country. Women from the group were organizing banners, their voices ready to drown out Ethan's lies. The empty chair had become a platform, a place where we stood together, unafraid. But as I finalized my speech, a call from an unknown number interrupted, the voice distorted and cold. "Speak tomorrow, and you'll lose more than your family." The threat froze me, a new shadow cast over my triumph. The Chicago conference hall buzzed with energy, a sea of women gathered under soaring ceilings, their voices a symphony of strength and solidarity. Dawn's light streamed through tall windows, casting a hopeful glow over the stage, where I stood, heart racing as I prepared to speak. The rally outside, organized by Clara and the women from our podcast support group, hummed with purpose, banners waving, chants of "Truth Speaks Louder" echoing through the streets. My speech was a beacon, a chance to transform the folder's painful truths into a call for empowerment, to show Ethan and Megan that their lies couldn't dim my light. The empty chair, once a mark of my exile, now stood as a symbol of the space I'd claimed, surrounded by a community that saw me. Stepping to the podium, I felt the weight of hundreds of eyes, each one a story of resilience. Clara and a dozen group members sat in the front row, their faces radiant with pride. I spoke of betrayal, not just mine, but theirs, how families can wound, how silence could fester. The folder's evidence, I explained, had exposed a scam that preyed on trust, but its deeper truth was about reclaiming power. "We're not the empty chairs," I said, voice steady. "We're the ones who rise." Applause thundered, a wave of affirmation that drowned out the memory of Thanksgiving's cruel cheers. The empty chair once wasn't empty anymore. It was filled by every woman in that room. Backstage, a surprise awaited. Clara handed me a stack of letters from listeners, each one a testament to the podcast's impact. One, from a young mother in Seattle, read, "You showed me I'm enough, even when my family says I'm not." Tears pricked my eyes, the words echoing the girl I'd been, yearning for Mom's approval. The letters were a lifeline, proof that my truth had sparked a movement. But the distorted voice from last night's call, "Speak and you'll lose more than your family," lingered, a shadow threatening to dull this triumph. I pushed it aside, focusing on the women who'd become my new family. The conference's ripple effect reached my parents, carried by the public's unrelenting scrutiny. Social media platforms, once Megan's weapon, now turned against her and Ethan. Twitter threads dissected their scam. Reddit posts called them textbook manipulators, and victim stories flooded news outlets. The pressure was a crucible, forcing Mom and Dad to confront their bias. A courier delivered Mom's letter that morning, her handwriting shaky but familiar. "I forgot how strong you were," she wrote, recalling a childhood moment when I'd bandaged her hand after a kitchen accident, my small hands steady. "We were wrong to choose Ethan." The apology was raw, but it felt hollow, tainted by the public's glare. Dad's call came hours later, his voice gruff but cracked. "We didn't see it, Sarah," he said, admitting they'd ignored Ethan's lies to preserve their pride. The confession was a seismic shift, but it couldn't erase years of neglect. Mom's letter, Dad's words, they were steps, but not absolution. The empty chair had been their creation, a space they'd carved by valuing Ethan's charm over my truth. Their regret was real, but it was born of consequence, not conviction. My heart ached, torn between the child who'd craved their love and the woman who no longer needed it. A final confrontation loomed, arranged at a quiet cafe after the conference. Mom and Dad sat across from me, their faces edged with exhaustion. Mom clutched a scarf I'd knitted her years ago, a relic of a bond now frayed. "Can't we fix this?" she pleaded, her eyes searching mine. Dad's hands fidgeted, his silence a plea of its own. The folder's truths, Ethan's fraud, Megan's plot, hung between us, undeniable. "I don't need a family that only sees me when they're cornered," I said, my voice firm but trembling. The words were a blade, severing the ties that had bound me to their expectations. The empty chair was no longer theirs to fill. It was mine, a throne of self-worth. Leaving the cafe, I felt a weight lift, the air crisp with possibility. The conference's energy still coursed through me. Clara's smile and the women's cheers a new anchor. Mom's childhood letter, tucked in my bag, was a keepsake, not a tether. Reading it one last time, I let tears fall, mourning the mother I'd lost, but embracing the woman I'd become. The folder had been my weapon, but my voice was my power, amplified by a community that valued me. The empty chair was a victory, a space I'd reclaimed, no longer defined by their rejection, but by my defiance. The rally outside had grown, spilling into the streets, a vibrant mosaic of women chanting for justice. News cameras captured the scene, their lenses a spotlight on our cause. Clara linked arms with me, her warmth a reminder that family wasn't blood, it was choice. The podcast had ignited a fire, but this moment fanned it into a blaze, a movement that would outlast Ethan's lies. Megan's silence online was deafening, her influence shattered, while Ethan faced mounting lawsuits from victims. The public's verdict was clear, their scorn a mirror to the family's former cheers. Aunt Linda's text arrived that evening, a simple, "I'm so proud." Her faith had been my compass, guiding me through the storm. She'd sent a photo of us at a long-ago picnic, my laughter frozen in time, a reminder of the joy I could reclaim. The empty chair wasn't a wound anymore. It was a canvas, painted with the colors of my new life. The threats, though, cast a shadow. The distorted voice, the note, the anonymous texts, they hinted at a hidden player, someone beyond Ethan and Megan, whose reach was still unknown. I'd won this battle, but the war wasn't over. As I walked home, the city's lights twinkled like stars, a promise of tomorrow. The podcast's success, the rally's fervor, and the women's letters were a foundation for a future I'd build on my terms. Mom and Dad's apologies were a chapter closed, their voices no longer my measure of worth. Clara's group planned a national tour, taking our message to more cities, and I'd agreed to lead it. But as I reached my apartment, a chilling sight stopped me cold. My door was ajar, the lock splintered, and a single sheet from the folder lay on the floor, marked with red ink. This isn't over. Who had breached my sanctuary, and what did they want next? Chicago's winter dusk painted the sky in soft grays, a quiet backdrop to the turmoil that had defined my world since Thanksgiving. My apartment, once a fortress of solitude, felt fragile after the break-in, its splintered lock now repaired, but the sense of violation lingering. Sitting at my desk, I unfolded Mom's childhood letter one last time, its faded ink a relic of a love that had warped into judgment. "My brave Sarah," it read, a promise broken by years of favoring Ethan. Folding it away, I let the ache settle, a final farewell to the daughter who'd begged for their approval. The empty chair, once a wound, now stood as a monument to my freedom. The podcast's echo still rippled, its message of truth and resilience reaching corners I hadn't imagined. A new email arrived from a woman named Elena in Miami who'd left her toxic family after hearing my story. "You showed me I'm not alone," she wrote, her words a mirror to the thousands of messages flooding my inbox. Each one was a thread, weaving a tapestry of courage that stretched across the country. Writing a blog post for the podcast's website, I poured out my journey, not for applause, but to honor those women. The empty chair wasn't solitary anymore. It was a shared space, filled by voices that refused to be silenced. Aunt Linda's visit brought warmth to the cold December evening. She arrived with a tin of homemade gingerbread, her smile a beacon in the storm's aftermath. Over tea, she shared news of Mom's quiet attempts to change, attending a therapy group, grappling with her role in Ethan's elevation. "She's trying, Sarah," Linda said, her voice gentle but firm. The gingerbread, spiced with memories of childhood baking, was Mom's recipe. A gesture I acknowledged with a nod, but no promises. Linda's presence was enough, a reminder that family could be chosen, not inherited. The empty chair was no longer a void. It was a seat I'd filled with those who saw me. The city's hum soothed my restless thoughts as I walked to a nearby park, the snow crunching underfoot. Clara's support group had become a lifeline, our weekly video calls a mosaic of laughter and tears. They'd named me their trailblazer, a title that felt heavy but true. Reflecting on the conference, I realized the rally had been more than a protest. It was a declaration that women like us could rewrite our stories. The folder's truths had sparked that fire, but our collective strength kept it burning. The empty chair was a symbol of that power, a place where we stood tall, unapologetic. Mom's scarf, left behind at the cafe, sat on my shelf, its soft wool a tangible link to the past. Touching it, I recalled her plea to fix this, but fixing meant surrendering my truth. The scarf was a keepsake, not a chain. My decision to sever ties wasn't born of anger, but of peace, a choice to protect the life I'd built. The podcast's success, the group's embrace, and Linda's faith were my foundation, stronger than any blood tie. The empty chair wasn't a loss. It was a canvas, painted with the colors of my new beginning. A local bookstore invited me to host a reading from my blog post, a small event that drew a crowd of familiar faces: Clara, group members, even Rachel, the colleague who'd lost money to Ethan's scam. Reading aloud, my voice trembled but grew steady, each word a step toward closure. The audience's nods, their quiet tears, were a chorus of understanding. Afterward, Rachel hugged me, whispering, "You gave me back my fight." The moment was a balm, healing wounds I hadn't named. The empty chair was no longer mine alone. It belonged to all who'd risen from betrayal. The break-in's shadow lingered, a puzzle unsolved. I'd reported it to the police, but the marked folder page, "This Isn't Over," offered no leads. Ethan and Megan faced legal battles, their scam unraveling under lawsuits, but the threats felt separate, their source elusive. Installing a security system eased my nerves, but the distorted voice from that call haunted my dreams. The folder had exposed their lies, but someone else lurked, their motives hidden. The empty chair was a triumph, but it also held a warning, a reminder that my fight wasn't done. Linda's gingerbread tin sat on my counter, a touchstone of her unwavering support. Her stories of Mom's therapy hinted at a shift, but I guarded my heart, choosing distance over false hope. The podcast's next episode, already recorded, would focus on chosen families, a tribute to Clara, Linda, and the women who'd become my kin. Writing it, I felt a quiet dignity, a certainty that my path was right. The empty chair was a legacy, a space I'd transformed from rejection to redemption. As I locked up for the night, the city's lights flickered beyond my window, a promise of new horizons. The rally's chants still echoed in my mind, a song of strength that carried me forward. But as I turned off the lamp, a soft thud came from the hallway. A package slipped under my door, unmarked but heavy. My breath caught, the memory of the break-in sharp. Inside was a single photograph, grainy and old, showing Ethan with a stranger in a suit, their faces serious. Scrawled on the back, ask about the silent partner. Who was this figure, and what secret were they guarding? New York's line shimmered through my apartment window, a tapestry of light that felt like a promise kept. Months after leaving Chicago, I'd carved a new life as a lead investigative journalist, my podcast a lighthouse for women seeking their truth. The grainy photograph of Ethan with the stranger, labeled Ask About the Silent Partner, had been the final puzzle piece. A police investigation, spurred by my reports, revealed the stranger as a disgraced financier who'd bankrolled Ethan's scam, now behind bars with him and Megan. The empty chair, once my exile, stood as a symbol of victory, a seat I'd claimed in a city that embraced my courage. The podcast's legacy grew, its episodes a weekly ritual for millions. A letter from a listener named Leela in Atlanta arrived, describing how she'd rebuilt her life after escaping a controlling family. "Your story was my map," she wrote, her words a spark that warmed my mornings. Leading a national tour with Clara's support group, I stood in auditoriums filled with women, their voices a chorus of defiance. Their stories of leaving toxic siblings, reclaiming dreams, wove a network of resilience. The empty chair wasn't a void, it was a platform, shared by those who'd found strength in my journey. New York's rhythm challenged me, its frenetic pace a test of endurance. A rooftop garden became my sanctuary, where I'd sip tea and journal, capturing moments of joy. A laugh with a colleague, a quiet sunrise. One evening, a book club friend shared her own tale of cutting ties with a judgmental parent, her relief echoing mine. These connections, forged in coffee shops and late-night chats, were my new family, built on trust, not obligation. The empty chair was no longer lonely. It was surrounded by allies who saw my heart. Aunt Linda's emails arrived like clockwork, each one a thread of love without expectation. She wrote of Mom's therapy, her slow unraveling of bias, and Dad's tentative steps toward reflection. "They're learning," Linda shared, "but they know you've found your path." A photo she sent of us dancing at a long-ago wedding now sat on my shelf, a reminder of her unwavering faith. I sent her a reply, promising a visit, but kept my distance from Mom and Dad, choosing peace over fragile reconciliation. The empty chair was my choice, a space I guarded with quiet pride. Clara's nonprofit flourished, its resources empowering women to escape toxic dynamics. At a gala in Manhattan, I watched as survivors shared their triumphs, new careers, healed hearts, redefined lives. Clara, radiant beside me, whispered, "This is your legacy, Sarah." The folder's truths had ignited this movement, but our collective strength sustained it. Donating Mom's scarf to the nonprofit's auction, I let go of its weight, the soft wool now a symbol of giving back. The empty chair was a beacon, shining for every woman who chose herself. The silent partner's arrest closed the final chapter of Ethan's scam. Court documents, shared by a detective, detailed his role, funneling money through offshore accounts, manipulating Ethan and Megan like puppets. The threats, from the break-in to the distorted voice, were his desperate attempts to silence me, now powerless behind bars. Filing the last of the folder's pages away, I felt a release, the puzzle complete. The podcast's final episode, recorded in my new studio, reflected on this closure, honoring the women who'd walked with me. The empty chair was no longer a shadow. It was a crown, worn with grace. A women's summit in Brooklyn offered a stage to share my journey's end. Hundreds listened, their eyes bright with recognition, as I spoke of transforming betrayal into purpose. A teenager in the audience handed me a sketch of a chair, its seat filled with flowers, captioned, "You made room for us." The gift was a spark, igniting the truth that my story had become theirs. Standing there, I saw Clara, Linda's photo in my mind, and the women's faces, a mosaic of courage. The empty chair was a legacy, a space where we all stood, unbowed. The summit's energy lingered, a call to keep moving forward. New York streets, alive with spring, felt like a canvas for my dreams. A book deal in talks, a mentorship program for young journalists. Friends filled my weekends, their laughter a melody that drowned out the past. Mom and Dad's letters arrived, their words softer, but I filed them unread, my heart full without their validation. The empty chair wasn't a wound, it was a mirror, reflecting the woman I'd become, whole and unapologetic. To every woman listening, know this: if your family dims your light, your story is your power. Tell it, unashamed, and you'll find a world waiting to lift you up. You are enough, just as you are. What will you do to claim your chair, to write the life you deserve? Stand, speak, and let your truth shine, for it will light the way for others. As I looked out at New York's horizon, the empty chair was my anthem, a song of freedom I'd sing forever.